The first night in our new house in Asheville, North Carolina, told me something was wrong. I didn't want to admit it. Not to my husband. I'll call him Mark throughout this narration, not to the kids, and not even to myself. We had worked too hard to get here, spent too much money, too many years saving, too much hope tied up in the idea of this house being the start of something better. It was an old craftsman-style home on a quiet street shaded by oak trees, built in the 1920s, with a wide front porch and creaky floorboards that charmed me at the showing. From the outside, it looked perfect. Fresh paint, new roof, neatly trimmed hedges. Inside, though, I noticed things the realtor brushed past. Faint stains on the floor in the basement, a strange smell in the back hallway, doors that didn't quite shut. Still, it was ours now. That first night, while unpacking, I walked down the hallway toward the bedrooms. Halfway down, the air changed. It felt heavy, pressing into my chest. I stopped in place, breath caught in my throat, and looked behind me. Nothing was there, but I swear the shadows on the wall weren't fixed. They shifted like they belonged to people who weren't in the room. I pushed the feeling aside, went to bed, and told myself moving was stressful, and my mind was just playing tricks. It didn't stop there. The second night, I woke to the sound of footsteps upstairs. Heavy, deliberate, pacing across the floorboards above us. But the bedrooms were on the first floor, and the attic was unfinished. I lay frozen, every nerve alight, as the footsteps crossed, paused, and crossed again. By the time I worked up the courage to shake Mark awake, the sound had stopped. On the third night, I saw it. I had gone into the basement to look for an extension cord. The smell was stronger down there, metallic and foul, like rusting iron mixed with damp earth. The single hanging bulb barely lit the space, shadows pooling in the corners. I bent to open a box and felt it immediately, someone standing behind me. My whole body stiffened. I turned, expecting Mark or one of the kids, but what I saw made every bit of blood in me run cold. A figure crouched at the base of the far wall, darker than the shadows, its limbs too long, its head twisted at an angle. It didn't move, didn't breathe, but I knew it was aware of me. The bulb flickered, and for an instant, its eyes shone back at me like coals. I bolted upstairs, slammed the door, and told myself I had imagined it. But I hadn't. The days that followed blurred into a series of escalating incidents. Objects shifting when we weren't looking. Cabinets slamming open in the middle of the night. The kids crying in their rooms, pointing at things I couldn't see. Mark brushing it off at first, then growing pale when he admitted he had woken with scratches across his back. We tried to ignore it. Tried to live like everything was normal. But the house didn't want us there. One evening, while I was making dinner, every light in the house cut out. The hum of the refrigerator died. The air grew unbearably thick, suffocating, and in the darkness, I heard it. The dragging scrape of something crawling across the floor. Not footsteps. Crawling. It circled the kitchen, too fast, too deliberate. When the lights flickered back on, every chair in the dining room had been turned upside down. That was when the fear became constant. The kids refused to sleep alone. Mark stayed up late, sitting in the living room with every lamp switched on, a baseball bat across his knees, though we both knew no bat could protect us from what we were up against. I barely ate, barely slept, waiting for the next attack. The worst night came 2 weeks in. We were in the living room when the temperature plummeted, the air condensing into clouds with each breath. The floorboards shuddered beneath us, and every picture on the wall crashed down at once. A roar erupted, not from outside, not from inside the house, but from everywhere, rattling through the walls and through our bodies. The shadows deepened until they weren't shadows anymore, but shapes. Figures, dozens of them, clawing across the walls, their limbs jerking like marionettes. Their faces were voids, their movements violent, circling us as we huddled together. And then, one form pulled itself free of the wall. It dropped onto the floor, landing on all fours, and stood to its full height, towering, grotesque, its body twisted and pulsing with something that made the air vibrate. Its head snapped toward me, eyes burning red. It stepped forward, and the floor groaned under its weight. My body locked. My children clutched me so tightly their nails dug into my skin. Mark stood rigid, shaking, his knuckles white around the useless bat. The thing moved closer. The air became unbreathable, crushing, like my lungs were filled with cement. My vision blurred. The kids sobbed into my chest. My heart thundered so hard it felt like it would rip itself free. The figure extended one grotesque arm toward us. And then, without thinking, I shouted inside my own mind. Not words, but defiance. I refused it. I refused to give it my fear, refused to let it devour us. Something in me broke, and in breaking it found strength. The sound in the room cracked. The shadows shuddered violently. The figure froze, limbs spasming. A scream erupted, not from its mouth, but from every wall, the ceiling, the floor, vibrating through the bones of the house. The lights blazed on. The figure convulsed once, twice, and then dissolved into the air, torn apart like smoke in a gale. The shadows scattered, folding back into nothing. The crushing weight lifted, the smell vanished, and silence fell. For the first time since we moved in, the silence was clean. I collapsed to the floor, sobbing, clutching the kids, Mark's arms around us. The house was still again, just wood and plaster, no longer alive with malice. And from that night forward, it never returned. The house remained ours, quiet, ordinary, and finally, a home.